My name is Costas Mandylor, born in Melbourne, Australia, to Greek parents. Parents are from Kalamata and Tripoli, which is south from Provatonas, which is Stefanos' home village, which is where we are now, which is where he's resting right behind me. Sad to say, but I'm proud I'm here. I met Stefanos somewhere in the early 90s, and I had heard of him. I used to see him in the distance when he worked a certain nightclub, and I used to say, who's that? Very striking figure. I'm sure many people are going to share that with you on this voyage that we're taking for film, for his remembrance. And somehow he heard about me, and I heard about him, and at some point we found each other. And when we found each other, sometimes you wonder why people take a liking to you, because you're not sure where they're coming from. But as time went by, I just found this consistent, honest, pragmatic, calm, wonderful companion. We could be in a crazy room full of people, a restaurant, noise, whatever it would be, and there was always like a little peaceful barrier around him. And somehow, even though he spoke low, I would always lean in and hear him. So that's how the relationship began. It was older brother, younger brother kind of feeling. And that's where it started. What I found most interesting about him at the beginning was that he was interested in other people. He paid attention. He absorbed information, which was one of his greatest qualities, I think. So I just found him to be easygoing, safe company. Hanging out with him as time went by, from the beginning to many years later, was comforting, but also kind of exciting, because he got around town and he always whispered in my ear, I'm going here with such and such, and meet us there. And I found us sort of being teenagers at the age of 30 or 35, buzzing around town. We were somewhat night owls at the time, and we would always end up in interesting places with great characters. And what I found about him was he always drew mostly interesting, good, and strong people. And most of them, as we've seen when he passed, that they were loyal. So people gravitated to him that liked loyalty, that liked a union of sort of like-minded people. Even though many people were very different, he brought people together. The best moment and story I can share with you, there are too many. I'll tell you one in particular. It was funny at the time. We did a film together called Sheltered. We played a Greek family of mobsters, and he was the quiet one, perfectly cast. Didn't say much, but as the messy part of the story came together, he pulled it all together in the end, which was part of his character. But I remember his name is Stefanos Miltsakakis, and we had the set chairs, and with respect, and everybody would put out their names, and everybody would sit on their chair, like Hollywood style, right? And I remember seeing his name one day, and I'm like, Stefanos Miltsakakis. How many different names can I create for him before the end of the movie? And of course, trepidatiously, I went up behind the chair and I would change it. One was Miltsakakis, like Milt is a very American name. And he came to the set and he didn't notice it until people started laughing. And when he saw it, he's like, what is this? But he had this look on his face like, whoever did this, you shouldn't be doing it. And it was me. I was in the corner going, oh, they're going to tell him it's me. And finally, I admitted it. But every day he came to the set, because he loved me, this gargantuan, beautiful animal, I changed his name every day. And towards the end, he actually smiled and laughed for once. But all through it, I took my chances. And it was really funny to see the people's reactions, because he always went like, when he'd see it and look around, and then eventually when he found out it was me, he'd look around and look at me and not say anything. And I'm like, is he going to be all right with me? Is he going to be all right with me? And at the end, he had a good laugh about it. And I think he changed mine. So we were even. In that same film, not to make it about films, but about his presence and his power and his kindness, we had to do a scene where I'm the crazy brother, and I always waved the gun around like Banshee, and he was the quiet, calm one, like in life. And I remember I pulled out the gun and I was going, crazy, like the irresponsible one. And in the scene, he has to grab me, take me into a beautiful lock, take the gun out of my hand, and then point it back at me and say, stop. And it's funny because he was so gentle, yet I felt the power, and he took it out of my hand. I didn't give it to him, because in movies you give yourself, you give your body, which is part of the camaraderie. But he took it out of my hand like when I was resisting, and I went, wow, he's good at this movie stuff. But lo and behold, somebody pulled out a gun in a nightclub that we all had shares in called Sanctuary back in the day. And somebody pulled out a gun who was supposed to be a notorious bad guy, and Stefanos happened to be there, and he just didn't like the fact that this guy was screaming at everybody and then pulled out the gun. He had the audacity to pull out his gun in his friend's nightclub, and he went up close and he took out the gun the same way in real life. So the man was no joke. And the guy that he pulled the gun away from kind of froze and went, what just happened to me? He embarrassed him. But he didn't mean to embarrass him. And the guy said a few words, and Stefanos said, okay. Killed the situation, and that was who he was. He was calm in the storm. If I were to describe him in one sentence, a compassionate man. He wouldn't like this, that I'm showing this feeling, but bad luck. What are you going to do to me now? Human. A human being. I used to say, why are you so stubborn? Why are you so stubborn? Why don't you listen to other people? But he did. But he didn't look like he was. He took everything. And he said things that would come up a year later, and he would remind me, and I'd go, he was listening. But what I miss mostly is just when you tell a story, even though he spoke quietly, you had to listen in, lean in and listen more. In life, you learn not to take things and people for granted, and it would be great to have him just lift that marble, which he could, and come and sit down for a couple of minutes. But he didn't show many emotions, so I'll just do this and say, I finally made it to your hometown. And it's quiet here, but it's just a little bit empty. And in one night, not only sitting with his mother, his sister, and his nephew, I met his uncle. I met a half a dozen people just walking down the street, and they all know who he is, and there's a great respect. So in one night, I became part of your town, buddy. I'm proud to be here. Πάντα έλεγε σε παντού, σε όλους, ότι όταν χόρευα για αυτόν και δεν χόρευα για κανέναν, κάπως είχε αγάπη για αυτό το θέμα. Τελευταία φορά, σήμερα. Αυτό είναι για σένα.